All right, welcome to my sheep skull on toned paper tutorial. So you might want to screenshot that first image. I have some toned paper at Strathmore toned paper. The first thing I'm going to do is just lay down my ground so that I know where I want my skull to sit. And very loosely, I'm going to use a pencil to lay out the general outline of the sheep skull so that I get it nicely balanced on my sheet of paper. The first thing I'm going to situate on the sheep skull is the eye socket. I like to draw circles by getting my hand moving in that circular motion, and when it feels fluid, just dropping my drawing tool. And the next thing I'm going to do is break that sheep skull up into geometric shapes. So I typically will go for triangles, rectangles, parallelograms, and circles, ovals. You can see I've just put those in. Those are going to show me where the teeth are. And I'm very, very loosely breaking that up. And then I'm going to go around and tease out the contour lines, the more organic contour lines of each of those individual shapes. Right now I'm putting in the top line above the teeth. And when I go to put the teeth in, I'm paying attention, but I'm not taking too much time to put those teeth in. It's important that they look like teeth, but they don't have to be absolutely perfect to look good. So you'll notice I just kind of wiggled some lines down there. Teeth have these lovely little folds in them. That's the front of the snout. And I'm taking those contour lines and breaking them up using some zigzag lines and curved lines, just make them more organic and to better adhere to the contour lines of the actual object. Now, of course, that eye socket is hollow. We can see right into the insides of the skull, and there's lots of details in there. So I'm going to go be putting those in. Not the worst idea to do some erasing and take away some of those guiding lines that you started with. So you don't want them getting away in the way when you are adding your charcoal and chalk a little later on. All right, I'm going to go to blocking in my darkest areas now. I have a sheet of paper on the side and a charcoal brick. I will add some charcoal to that sheet of paper and then pick it up with my fingers and block in my darker tonals. You'll notice I'm using the side of my pinky simply because that is the smallest mark that I can get using my hands, is that side of my pinky. As you do more and more charcoal drawings, you will start to discover how to use your different fingers on different angles to get and to make different marks. So I'm looking at my source image, noting the areas that are darker than others, and doing my best to put those values in. I'm not being too specific, I'm not worrying too much because I can always go back in and lighten them up with an eraser. You'll notice how my finger is curving as I'm adding those values. It's always important to try and move your material or move your tools along the curve of the object because that will just help create more form and increase the illusion of depth. So there's some areas that are just a bit too small for my fingers to get in. I'm using a Q-tip here. You can use a paper stomp. I'm just picking up that loose charcoal with the Q-tip, putting it down where I want it, and then blending it out with my fingers. If you don't have a Q-tip, you can make one with a cotton ball by peeling some of it off and adding it to a barbecue skewer or the end of a pencil. I'm using my pinky now to put in the concave areas of the teeth. So when you look at the teeth, you'll notice that they're like rippled. So what I'm doing is I'm just adding that deeper area of the teeth. I've taken my charcoal pencil. Now your charcoal pencils, I prefer General's brand. The higher number, the 6B, is going to go really dark and blend really well. If I want a sharp, crisp line, I would be using a lower number like my 2B or my HB. So again, if I want a line to blend or I want a black area to blend, I'm going to use a higher B. And if I want it to just sit there and sharpen my image, I'm going to use an HB or one of the lower numbers like a 2. I have a great pencil sharpener. It's important to be able to keep these nice and sharp. If you don't have a pencil sharpener with a really good sharp blade, you can use a scalpel to sharpen these guys. So inside the skull, there are a bunch of little holes in the bone. I'm going to be putting those in, working my way around the eye socket. So I'm looking at my source image and pulling out all the darkest darks, and I'm adding those with the charcoal pencils. You'll notice I kind of hold them like chopsticks. It just allows me to have two tools ready to go. So that nice sharp HB charcoal pencil is allowing me to like focus my image. You'll notice I'm not pushing super hard. It's more like I'm just dragging it over my lines. So I'm using that to put the cracks that are in the skull and to kind of tease out those teeth. Then I'm going to switch over to my white and I'm going to block in my highlights now. So I'm looking at that source image. I'm looking for the whitest whites and I am using my white General's charcoal pencil to block those in. And now that I've got my brightest highlights in, I'm going to go back just with a Q-tip and blend out some of my darks. So there's a little bit of charcoal on that Q-tip. You'll notice it's getting a little bit darker, but it's also serving to blend out some of the darker darks that I've already put down. You'll notice I'm working in a curve, and that is really just following the concave curve of the inside of that eye socket. So I'm blending everything out. When I do this, inevitably things get a little bit muddy and I'm going to have to go back later on and refocus, but this does allow me to move a lot more material around. So now that's done, in an effort to add more white, I'm going to actually use a little General's white charcoal brick, and I'm going to lay down a significant amount of white, which I will then be blending out. I am being quite careful to ensure that I'm putting that medium down by moving the tool in the direction of the form, and then I can use either a paper stomp, which I've got now. Q-tip would also work, so would your finger. There's lots of tools out there in order just to blend out that white so that it's not too vibrant. So now that I've worked my way all around, I just kind of cleaned up a little bit with an eraser, and I'm going to go back in with a charcoal pencil and work at refocusing. So as I blend it out, I lost some lines, and I want to be sure to sharpen my image a little bit. So I'm going back in again with that nice sharp HB charcoal pencil, and I am refocusing the image. So now I'm going to be flipping back and forth between a black and a white. You'll notice I'm working my way around the eye socket and pulling those high areas outwards more. And as soon as I add that white, you can see that area pull forward. And this is really what it's all about. So you are going to add lights to pull forward and darks to push back, and your midtones to create everything in between. And the bigger the discrepancy between your lightest lights and your darkest darks, the greater the depth that you will be able to achieve in your drawing. So all those little cracks are going in. I'm now moving that white pencil with quite an intense curve so that you can feel the concave nature of the inside of that eye socket. I'm not always keeping even pressure on these tools. It's important that your line is not perfect thickness and the same value all the time, right? You want to kind of drag it so that the line is broken up periodically. That is especially true when you are putting those cracks that are in the bone in, because if they are of even thickness and even darkness everywhere, then what that does is that flattens your image out again. You can kind of see me just wiggling the tool. And really at this point, your job is to step back and look, push back, pull forward, refocus, clean up your negative space with an eraser. If you want a really smooth blend, then you can go to a cotton ball or a Q-tip. By using the sharp pencil on the inside of the teeth now, I'm pulling those white areas forward and pushing the others back. It's push and pull, and then a decision that is up to each individual artist whether or not they want their marks to show and have it more lines visible, or if they want to blend them out and have it a little more smooth. This piece would benefit from a cast shadow, so that could be something that I could add that would simply give this image a little more depth. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Good luck.